clogging the paint at times, and so we, whether he's going to the basket or making the right read, which is a kick out, we're asking him to be decisive and aggressive and physical with it. A lot of times he's getting kind of floating, going off one leg when he can plan and go off two and finish a little bit stronger. And so I think that'll draw some contact. When I mentioned hunting fouls, I'm thinking it's taking him off his shots a little bit. And, we're just telling him to be decisive. He's done it all year, seen every coverage, and for the most part has kind of picked those apart. And so want more of the same in the finals, obviously.
Tim, standing over here.
Normal minutes for Robert and starting.
Yes.
You guys have talked a bunch about the third quarter. Obviously, it hasn't gone the way you necessarily wanted to overall in the series. When you look back at them, what is sort of the recurring theme that you see that caused you guys to not have kind of be to the level that you want to be?
I think turnovers and a little poor offense has really got them out and ignited their break a little bit. And so within the series, that's been a sign of if we're doing well or not, and that's the turnovers. And a lot of times coming out of the third, we've had some poor possessions offensively, which have led to that. But, we've had good starts overall. Just have to translate from that from the first quarter to third.
Steve in the fourth row on the right side.
Hi, Steve Ashburn with NBA.com. How important is it that Steph feels the defense? And as elusive as he can be, how difficult is that sometimes?
Yeah, that's what we pride ourselves on, being one of the toughest physical defensive-minded teams. And at times, we're allowing our guards to kind of dictate where they want to pick them up, and some of those things, it's creating some space and opportunity for them to get downhill with some of the picks that they're setting around half court. So have to be a little bit more deliberate about that, understanding he can stretch the floor, and we don't want to bring our bigs that far off and where he has a ton of room to operate, but we do want to impact him and not let him just get ahead of steam coming down. So we trust Marcus and Derek and our guys to do that. Everybody else to kind of load up behind, and he's obviously one of the best at it. So with his range and ball handling ability, playmaking ability, puts you in certain predicaments that are tough for you.
Dan over here.
Ime, Dan Roach from WBZ. Just a thought on your 8 postseason road wins, and how much confidence does that give you coming into a game like tonight as the games get bigger?
Yeah, it's kind of who we've been second half of the season, even before the postseason started. Bounce back and kind of have a let the last game go mentality and move on to the next. And I think the tough road we've been through in the playoffs so far with the elimination games against Milwaukee and the Miami Game 7 at their place obviously bodes well for us. And we, as I've said quite a bit, we put it behind us pretty quickly and move on. Understand opportunities that were lost and some of the things we could have done better. But our guys are resilient, have been through quite a tough road against some high-quality teams, and that'll work well for us tonight.
Third row on this side.
Brian Robb, Mass Live. Ime, your lineup-wise, you've been pretty evenly split last couple games between going with 2 bigs versus having 1 big on the floor. Is that strictly a game flow decision for you at this point in terms of, or do you want to kind of see a little bit of both of those groupings when you're going up against Warriors here?
Yeah, it's been both. It's been a flow of the game. I think Derek was obviously playing extremely well and kind of took some of the Grant's minutes and with the smaller lineup, and so we like that. But at the same time, Rob has finished games with Allen when they're both playing well, and so I think we can match whatever Golden State does with our big and small lineups, and so it's more a flow of how guys are playing. I think they are trying to take some of put some size on the floor when we have 1 big, bringing Looney back in some, so we can kind of counter that if we want to go bigger at that time. But a lot of it has to do with who's playing well and what lineups and units are playing well together.
John Corrales, Boston Sports Journal. How much of your time, your game prep, is dedicated to maybe finding that one big adjustment that you can throw at them versus just trying to perfect what you've been doing all along?
A little bit of both. I think we don't want to overreact to, Curry is playing well, obviously, but we feel we don't want to lose sight of the big picture, and a lot has to do with our offense. And, like I said, we've played them evenly in wins and losses defensively. Offensively, we've kind of had a big step back in our 2 losses as opposed to the 120, 116 we had in the wins. And so holding them to 107 or 100 or, around that area, if we're playing offense, I think we finished the last game off with a victory. And so not overreact to what we're doing with him and holding everybody else in check, but also tightening up some things offensively. And so seeing the big picture of what it is and not just Curry getting loose. But at the same time, we do have things we can do to make him more uncomfortable without opening up everything else to Draymond and the shooters and the movers.
Davide, back center.
Coach Davide Chinelato with the Gazzetta in Italy. You've been great in responding to a loss in this playoffs. Do you think it's more a mental thing or a adjustment things?
It's both. I think our guys are resilient and tough and get pissed about certain losses the way we're losing some games. And so we get a good focus coming back in, but at the same time, we do zero in on a few things that we could have done better and in losses and, tighten up in those areas. And so our biggest thing has been the carryover after the wins. And so it's been good for us so far and look forward for that happening tonight, but we'd like to, get a little more consistent after the wins for sure.
Barry, over here.
Hey, Barry Bloom from Sportico. How much do you think this just comes down to when you look at the ebb and flow of the series? Just the final, who has the best last 10 minutes of the series?
Seems to play out like that. The first halves have been pretty even so far. The third quarters have been better, and our fourths have been better overall, other than the last 5 minutes of the last fourth. And so, in general, I think offensively, we don't want to understate how important that is for us in defending them. Did get stagnant last game. Took some threes that were contested. We could have drove those. And then, obviously, they hit some big shots. And so, offensively, taking care of the ball, that all plays into how well we can defend them in the half court and limit their runs getting out. And so, at times, it seems like that. But we got to be better in the third to kind of counter some of the third quarters they've been having to not have to play from behind as much.
Cameron, second row.
Hey, Coach. Cameron Buford, Voice of the Fans. A lot's been talked about Jason Tatum's shot selection over the last couple of days. Are you comfortable with the looks that he's getting?
Yeah, I think he's getting some solid ones. He's shooting okay from three. I think it's the finishes around the basket that he's, kind of falling off the numbers-wise as far as that. But getting there and making the right reads is the main thing. And I've mentioned the 2 wins. He's picking the gym apart, has 13 and 9 assists in those, and then 5 in the losses. And so as aggressive as we want him to be, he knows what's going to be there waiting for him if he over-penetrates. And sometimes it's taking that 1 or 2 less dribbles and finding guys like he's done and kind of keeping himself out of bad situations. But we do want him to get downhill, get aggressive, and use his size. It's more so the strong finishes and less looking for fouls that have kind of taken off some of his shots and equated to some of his misses.
Joe, second row over here.
Ime. For the last game, Steve made a lineup change. He took Looney out and moved him to the second unit. How do you think that impacted what you guys do, and is it something you actually have to adjust to for Game 5?
Size-wise, I think Looney's been obviously solid, hurt us on the glass some games, and the counter to that is we can get our bigs out sooner and bring them back when he comes in. And I think part of it was to have him out there when Rob or we go with one big. And so I wouldn't say it was a huge impact in the first. Still evenly played for the most part. Us being up 5 or so most of the first, second, third. He hurt us late in the game, and obviously it went with him over Green, and he had an impact on the game. So not just him, Wiggins and some of the guys, I think their offensive rebounding is a key for them, and Looney's a big part of that.
Any other questions for Coach? All right, thanks, Coach.